What happens when 35 luxury homes are built? Not just anywhere, but on land that was never theirs to begin with. They thought they owned it. They thought they were safe, but they had no idea what I was about to unleash. I never asked for trouble. All I ever wanted was peace, a place away from the noise of cities, away from neighbors who always seemed to know more about my life than I did. That's why, years ago, I bought the land by the lake. To some, it was just dirt, trees, and water. But to me, it was freedom. The land stretched far beyond what the eye could see, rolling hills that glowed gold in the morning light, thick pines that whisper when the wind blew, and the lake itself calm and endless, reflecting the sky like a sheet of glass. At the far edge of it stood an old dam. People in town used to say it was cursed, that it had been built on bad ground. But when I looked at it, I saw strength. I saw something ancient that had stood against time, just like I wanted to. For years, my life was simple. I would wake up at the first rays of dawn, cast my fishing line into the still water, and listen to the soft hum of crickets fading as the world came alive. At night, the owls would call, the stars would scatter across the sky, and I would walk along the dam, feeling the cool air rising from the water below. That land wasn't just a place where I lived. It became part of me. Every inch of it carried my footsteps. Every tree knew my silence. Every ripple on the lake carried my reflection. It was mine, all mine, or at least, that's what I thought. Because one morning, I woke up to sound I had never heard before on my land. Engines, voices, and orders being barked out. That was the day the HOA arrived. The morning it all changed started like any other. The sun rose over the lake, golden light spilling across the water. But instead of birds and silence, I woke up to the growl of engines. Heavy engines, bulldozers, concrete trucks, voices shouting orders. At first, I thought they were working on land nearby, maybe repairing a road or clearing some forest. But as I stepped outside, my heart stopped, right there on my property, were signs planted deep into the ground. Big, bold letters read, Future Community, Lakeside Gardens, 35 luxury homes. I froze. The words didn't make sense. This wasn't their land. This was my land. Every inch of it. I stormed toward the workers, demanding answers. They looked at me like I was a stranger trespassing on their project. And then she appeared, the HOA president, a woman in a sharp business suit, sunglasses on, a smile that wasn't friendly at all. She walked toward me as if she already owned everything around her, calm, confident, and arrogant. I shouted, "This is my property. You can't build here." She didn't flinch. She didn't even hesitate. Instead, she gave me a smile I'll never forget and said, "This land doesn't belong to you anymore. Check the county records." Her words cut through me like ice. County records? I had the deed. I had the proof. How could she possibly claim otherwise? Behind her, the bulldozers roared to life, tearing into the soil I had walked on for years. My lake, my dam, my sanctuary. It was all slipping away. And in that moment, I realized something terrifying. This wasn't a mistake. This was war. The first place I went was the courthouse. My hand shook as I flipped through the records, and there it was, in black and white. My land carved up and reassigned. The lines had been shifted, the deed altered. According to the county's official papers, more than half of my property now belonged to the Lakeside Gardens HOA. It didn't make sense. I had the original deed locked in a safe at home. I had proof. Yet, somehow, someone had tampered with the system. And worse, the documents looked real. Perfect seals. Perfect signatures. As if history itself had been rewritten. I went to lawyers. At first, some listened, flipping through my documents with interest. But the moment they heard the name HOA, the interest vanished. "They've got money," one attorney told me. "They've got influence. Friends in the courthouse, friends in the county office. You don't want to spend your life savings fighting them." Another lawyer leaned closer and whispered, "If I were you, I'd walk away. They always win." But they didn't know me. I had spent years building my life on that land. I had walked every acre, fished in every corner of the lake, and guarded the dam with my own hands. This wasn't just dirt and water to me. It was home. It was memory. It was everything. When I confronted the HOA president again, her smile was sharper this time, almost mocking. "You can't stop progress," she said, standing in front of the half-built road cutting across my fields. "You're just one man. We're a community." I stared at the machines ripping into my land. My fist tightened. My pulse raced. Fear gnawed at the edges of my resolve. But underneath it, something else burned hotter. They thought I'd roll over. They thought I'd surrender like everyone else. But I wasn't like everyone else. If they wanted a battle, they had just found one. The sound of hammers and saws never stopped. From sunrise to sunset, the air echoed with construction. Every week, a new frame rose against the skyline. Every month, more families arrived with moving trucks, laughter, and picnic baskets, playing on the grass that once belonged to me. I watched from my porch, arms crossed, jaw tight, feeling like a ghost haunting my own land. Children splashed in the shallows of the lake I had cared for. Couples launched boats from the docks I had repaired with my own hands. They waved as if I was part of their neighborhood. But I wasn't. I was a man being erased. And the HOA president made sure I never forgot it. She came to my porch one evening as the sun bled red across the water. She was dressed sharp, her lipstick the same color as the sky. She didn't knock. She didn't ask. She just stood there, smiling, as if she already owned every breath I took. "You should sell what's left," she said casually, like it was small talk. "Before you lose that, too." Her smile curled, the words dripping with venom hidden behind politeness. I said nothing, but my silence only fueled her arrogance. She leaned closer. "You see, we're not just building homes. We're building a future. You can either join us or watch as we take it piece by piece." Then she turned and left, her heels clicking against my wooden porch like a countdown. The next morning, I found a violation notice taped to my mailbox. Illegal fencing, unsafe dock, unregistered outbuildings. My property, my sanctuary, was being attacked from every angle. They wanted to bury me under paper, threats, and fear. Neighbors avoided eye contact. Some whispered apologies. Others stared with pity. A few even warned me quietly, "Don't push back. She always gets what she wants." But every threat, every fine, every nail hammered into my land lit another fire in me. I was angry. No, I was furious. And while the HOA president believed she was closing in, she didn't know the truth. I had something she didn't. Something buried deep in the history of this land. Something that could turn their entire future into dust. And for the first time in weeks, I smiled, because war had just entered its next phase. But here's what she didn't know. The old dam at the edge of my property wasn't just a piece of history, or some rustic decoration left behind by my grandfather. No, that dam was the only thing holding back the lake, a body of water so massive, so restless, that if it were ever unleashed, it could swallow everything downstream in hours. And directly downstream, their shiny, brand-new community of 35 homes. At first, the thought was nothing more than an echo in the back of my mind, a whisper I tried to ignore. I wasn't a man of violence. I wasn't someone who sought chaos. But anger has a strange way of reshaping you. It digs into your chest like a rusted nail, and every time you breathe, you feel it deeper. For weeks, I studied that dam. Not just casual walks or curious looks. No, I became obsessed. I ran my hands along its weathered stones, traced the cracks that had formed over decades, and imagined what might happen if those cracks gave way. I pulled out the old blueprints my grandfather had left in a tin box, diagrams that explained every mechanism, every gate, every overflow channel. At night, I sat with a single lamp burning, poring over engineering manuals, researching water pressure, calculating flow rates. I wanted to know exactly what would happen if those gates were opened. How fast would the water travel? How high would it rise? How far would it reach? And with each answer, the picture grew clearer in my mind. Their streets, once lined with shiny cars, swallowed in mud. Their manicured lawns, gone beneath a sheet of rushing water. Their homes, those smug, freshly built homes that mocked me, reduced to splinters. At first, it wasn't about revenge. I told myself that. I repeated it like a prayer. This is just curiosity. This is just knowledge. But knowledge can be dangerous because curiosity, slowly, almost silently, turned into resolve. I remember the night it happened. I was standing on the dam, the moon hanging like a watchful eye above me, the water pressed against the gates, humming, alive. I realized then it wasn't me that wanted revenge. It was the land itself. It was the water, aching to be free, aching to cleanse everything that had been stolen. And for the first time, I asked myself, what if justice was in the courtroom? What if justice was here, in these gates, waiting for my hand? The night was silent when I walked to the dam. Silent in the way a battlefield is silent. Just before the first shot is fired, the moonlight shimmered on the water, pale silver dancing across the restless surface. The forest around me smelled of pine, damp earth, and gasoline left behind by the construction crews that had invaded my land. It was a strange mix, nature and industry colliding in the night. I stood before the rusted wheel that controlled the gates. It towered above me, ancient, its surface pitted with time. My hands hovered just inches away. They trembled, not with weakness, but with the weight of what was about to happen. One turn, that's all it would take. One turn to undo years of arrogance. One turn to remind them that land, water, and nature don't bow to committees or contracts. I gripped the wheel. Cold iron bit into my skin. I twisted. The metal resisted at first, screeching like a wounded animal. Another turn. The sound echoed across the lake, across the valley, and then a roar. Not the roar of engines or men, but something older, something primal. The lake awakened. It surged forward like a beast long chained, finally unleashed. The gates shuddered, then split open with a thunderous crack. Water thundered into the valley, a white wall racing downward with merciless speed. Trees bent and snapped like matchsticks. The first row of houses, those fresh, polished homes, stood no chance. Their walls crumbled within minutes, splintering as though made of cardboard. Cars lifted, bobbing like helpless toys in the current. Alarms screamed to the chaos, their shrill wails drowned almost instantly by the roar of rushing water. Lights flickered, electricity failing one home at a time until the whole neighborhood was swallowed in darkness. And then came the voices, desperate, terrified. Cries cutting through the night. Children screaming, dogs barking, families shouting each other's names. The sound was human, fragile, and yet powerless against the unstoppable force devouring them. On the far side of the valley, standing on her balcony, the HOA president appeared, wrapped in her silk robe. She looked down at the destruction with wide, horrified eyes. She screamed into the night, a sound of fury and helplessness. She clutched the railing as everything she had built, her empire of rules, fines, and stolen land, was ripped away before her very eyes. The water did not care about her power. It did not care about her arrogance. It consumed her street, her cars, her kingdom of order and control. In that moment, she was no longer a ruler, just another voice carried off into the flood. And as I stood on the dam, the spray of water hitting my face, I felt no regret, no fear, only silence in my heart. Because for the first time in years, the land was mine again. By sunrise, the world had changed. The roar of the flood had faded, replaced by an eerie silence that blanketed the valley like a shroud. Mist hung over the wreckage, rising in pale, ghostly threads as if the earth itself exhaled after a long, painful sigh. The community was gone. Entire streets that had once echoed with laughter, car horns, and weekend parties were now nothing but mud and broken timber. Where polished driveways once stood, there were only scattered fragments of glass glinting faintly in the morning light. Children's toys floated half-buried in the muck. Fences, torn from their posts, drifted like forgotten bones. The lake had reclaimed what was stolen. Authorities arrived quickly, police cars, fire trucks, rescue boats, but all they found was devastation. They scrambled through the ruins, calling out for survivors, documenting the destruction. Experts were brought in. Reporters soon followed. Their words echoed across every news channel. A natural dam failure, a tragic act of God. No one suspected otherwise. No one looked at the man on the hill. And me? I just sat there, on that familiar rise overlooking the valley, the same hill where I had once dreamed of peace and freedom. The morning sun stretched across the water, just as it had years ago, when the land was untouched, when it was only mine. I didn't smile. I didn't cheer. There was no celebration in what I had done, only stillness. Because deep down, I knew this wasn't victory. This was balance. I whispered to myself, almost afraid the wind might carry the words away. Some things were never theirs to take. And with that, I stood, turned away from the wreckage, and walked back into the trees. The land was silent once more. Silent but free. Hit the subscribe button and turn on the bell icon so you never miss our latest videos.